Hi everyone, my name is Valerie Benson and my presentation is titled Fighting Free Speech, an Analysis of Florida's Recent Free Speech Legislation. So I'm Valerie. I'm a master's student at Arkansas Tech University studying college student personnel, but I'm also working concurrently at the University of West Florida where I'm a hall director of President's Hall. So today I'll be telling you a little bit about the origin story of the Campus Free Expression Act. I'll talk about the sponsors of that and the Florida Excellence in Higher Education Act of 2018. Then a summary of both acts and how they incorporate together, the impacts of this legislation, and then my own personal testimony if I got to appear before the committee to influence this legislation. So the beginnings of the Campus Free Expression Act. This started as two separate bills, one being the House Bill 909 and the Senate Bill 1234. So the conversation for free speech on college campuses in Florida kind of all came to a head in October 2017 when Richard Spencer was a guest speaker at the University of Florida. Here he was met with lots of student protests. People were yelling at him, calling him a racist, saying it's, hey, say it loud, say it clear, Nazis are not welcome here. Lots of protests where it was a big disruption to his speech. So this kind of prompted that conversation of, could we do legislation to impact this? So about 3 months later, out comes two new bills addressing that free speech conversation. The first being the House Bill 909, which is the House version of the Campus Free Expression Act. So this was filed by Bob Rommel, who does not have a formal college degree. He made his way through selling cars, having a Buick dealership. He does state in an interview he has some college with some experience in criminal justice, but didn't walk away with a degree from that. But currently he's a restaurant owner, so that's how he makes his money now. But his bill died on the House calendar before its third reading, so it did get read a couple of times, did get discussed, but eventually got postponed enough where it died. Now, a similar outcome happened in the Senate Bill 1234. So this was sponsored by Senator Dennis Braxley. Dennis Braxley is a funeral director. He does have college experience. He did receive a bachelor's degree in psychology and sociology from Florida State University, but then later on went back to earn an associate's in funeral service from Miami-Dade Community College. So pretty interesting. And Senate bill also died on March 10, 2018 in the Judiciary Committee. So even though both of those bills died, if that was it, my whole presentation would be over. So obviously something happened. So this Campus Free Expression Act still lived on. It got proposed in Senate Bill 4, which is called the Florida Excellence in Higher Education Act of 2018. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. So the Florida Excellence in Higher Education Act of 2018 is a big bill full of educational amendments sponsored by Bill Galvano. So Bill Galvano is a Republican senator. If you're going to have someone introduce higher education legislation, let it be someone that has a lot of college experience. This guy has it. He has an Associates of Arts from Manatee Community College, a Bachelor's of Science in Political Science from the University of Florida, and then a JD from the University of Miami School of Law. So he's the primary sponsor of all these educational amendments in this one Higher Education Act of 2018 bill. So we have been concentrating on the Campus Free Expression Act, which was incorporated as an amendment to this big bill. So that amendment was introduced by Ray Rodriguez. So he's a Republican representative of Florida District 76. He's the House Majority Leader. He has a Bachelor's of Science from Berry College in Rome, Georgia, and then recently got his Master's of Public Administration from Florida Gulf Coast University in 2017. So we've kind of been leading up to this, but what is this Campus Free Expression Act? So the first thing it does is give you a bunch of definitions to further define what it says later on. So it talks about commercial speech, free speech zones, outdoor areas of campus, public institutions of higher education, and then material and substantial disruption. So this Free Expression Act allows students to engage in expressive activities freely in outdoor areas of campus. So this, I said students, but it also includes outside guests as well. It eliminates free speech zones, so it allows all those outdoor areas of campus to essentially become a free speech zone. It's not just limited to that one green patch of grass right by the Union. This is all the outdoor areas. So it also says that students, faculty, or staff may not disrupt previously scheduled or reserved activities on campus occurring at the same time. So it means no disruptions to previously scheduled events. And then it authorizes a person who, hey, if their free speech got interrupted, they can pursue legal action against that university that allowed that disruption to happen. So as we know, this Campus Free Expression Act couldn't pass on its own. So it got bundled with a bunch of other sections of the Senate Bill 4 to be able to pass. So we're going to talk a little bit about those. So this Florida Excellence in Higher Education Act, Senate Bill 4, it has a bunch of different areas covering higher education. The biggest one, or the most positive one, is the expanding student aid. So Florida has a scholarship program called Bright Futures. So this allows high-achieving high school students to get some or all of their tuition paid for by the state. So this Bright Future Scholarship, it has different levels. And a big thing about this act was that it extended one level to not just cover 50% of tuition, but 75% of tuition. So it affected a lot of people. This expanding student aid portion also expands the Benequisto Scholarship Program, which allows students that are out-of-state students but reside near a university. So kind of similar to the University of West Florida, we can allow students from Mobile, Alabama, or neighboring Alabama cities to come to the University of West Florida without having to pay out-of-state tuition. So that scholarship program kind of speaks on to that. Then there's also this one section creates the Florida Farm Worker Scholarship Program, which essentially gives scholarships to sons or daughters or children of Florida farm workers. Then it also expands the First Generation Matching Grant Program, where the Florida will match part of the first generation students' grants. So another section also talks about institutional accountability. So one thing to know about Florida is that they operate off the Florida metrics. So the metrics are how universities in Florida get their funding. It's based off of a performance model, where it's if you get a 10 in this category, you get a lot more money, or if you get a 2, then hey, you're not getting a lot of money. So this bill changes that one of the metrics, where it doesn't focus on a 6-year graduation rate, but a 4-year graduation rate of 60% or higher. And another major part is the programs and investments. It establishes a world-class faculty and scholar program and State University Professional and Graduate Degree Excellence Program, which essentially tries to recruit outstanding faculty, outstanding students to more of the business-oriented programs. So the Florida Excellence in Higher Education Act of 2018 was passed in March 2018. It was signed by the Governor Rick Scott. So this first fall semester afterwards, so this semester, was the first time we were able to see some of the impacts of this legislation actually take place. So one of the biggest impacts we've seen with this Florida Excellence in Higher Education Act of 2018, SB4, it was with those Bright Futures recipients. As I said, this affected a lot of people, 46,000 of that middle level medallion scholars had their scholarships increased from only covering about 50% of tuition to 75% of tuition. So hopefully this increases retention and allows those students who might have been struggling to able to get some of their tuition more paid for and have a little bit ease in their college experience. On the other end, we have that focus of 4-year graduation from the Florida metrics. So I see this as a potential for them to roll back some of those remedial classes, because if we're focusing on getting people out in 4 years, then we're not really wanting to help those remedial students who may need to take an extra semester, an extra year of classes to be able to catch up with the rest. So I worry that universities will also sort of raise their admission standards, cutting off college access for some of the lower performing students compared to our Bright Futures recipients. Then, free speech. We focused on this mostly the whole presentation, so here are the impacts. So on the student end, I don't see much changes. Sometimes they're like, okay, hey, we used to not ever see speakers or outside guests in this one area of campus, but now they're here because of this legislation. So they may be able to see different people in different areas, but other than that, students don't necessarily feel that they've been impacted that much. However, on the opposite end, administrators. Handbooks had to be updated, definitions communicated to students, and on the upper administrative level, we see more of a worry of that disruption of that expressive activities now that universities can be held liable for students disrupting a campus speaker. So I'm a student affairs professional working at a public university in the state of Florida. So I wish I had the chance to give my own 2 cents on this legislation. So if I would have had the opportunity to influence this legislation, I wish I could have talked about it before that Campus Free Expression Act got amended into the Higher Education Act of 2018. But here's what I'd say if I got the chance. So a little about my own personal background. I went to the University of Louisiana Lafayette for undergrad, and my entire college experience was funded from a scholarship program very similar to the Florida Bright Futures Act. I got the highest level, it paid for all of my tuition, and then some, and I was able to couple that with my experience of being an RA, and essentially I never had to worry about paying tuition. I don't have any student loans or anything like that. So I have a heart for this Bright Futures program because I know firsthand of the impacts that it has. So it warms my heart to see this Bright Futures expansion happen because I know that impacts so many people and has helped so many people. However, we can't let the good of that one piece of this legislation impact how we say yes or no to the whole thing. I was always taught if you don't agree with the whole bill, you can't vote yes to it. You need to vote no and let the parts that you like pass on their own merit versus being coupled with things you don't like. So this Campus Free Expression Act is not perfect, and that's my main problem with this. I see it as a way for it to suppress counter-protesters. So it was basically a law that would stop the mess that happened with the white supremacist speaker at the University of Florida. So I see this as a way where it says, okay, if you're the first one to reserve it, you know what, you get your stuff heard. And it doesn't give the opportunity to have an equal protest happen. It seems to me as a way to block out that opposition. So ultimately, I would encourage the committee to vote no on this and allow the separate parts to pass on their own merit. Thank you so much for listening and watching my presentation today. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I have a whole 12-page report on this, so don't be shy if you want to see my references or anything like that. Reach out. You can contact me at vbenson@atu.edu or from my University of West Florida account at vbenson@uwf.edu. Either way, you can get a hold of me. Thank you.